We saw the continuation of the awkward conclave meeting between Jane and Mike. While they were telling each other one thing, they were telling us another. I would be surprised if they both make it to the final episode, as Jane will be watching her back while Mike plots his next move. Paul gave them the choice of either murder or seduction, but not both. Jane and Mike chose to murder, with Brittany, Joe and Ciali as candidates. Brittany was the eventual victim. While it was the correct decision for the traitors, it's a big loss for the faithfuls. Brittany was very clued up in her search for traitors, and I believe she would have figured out another traitor. Though we later found out she might not have been as close as I thought, given that her next suspect was Stephen. The day seemed to be filled with suspicions around people's actions over the past 24 hours that may or may not have contributed to already suspect behaviour. Stephen kept questioning why the traitors chose Brittany for murder. I think it was pretty clear why, and it was to the others, but Stephen just didn't seem to understand. Why would you keep someone in the game who was no longer suspected as being a traitor and had actively found two of them? We saw that Jason, Ciali and Utah have their own code when talking about the others. It could have been suspicious to anyone outside the group if they had heard, thinking it was traitors trying to secretly communicate. I probably would have done the same, but for different reasons, as it takes me a while to remember names, so in the interim, I would come up with a nickname. Mark was unknowingly in self-sabotage mode. It first started when Mark decided to go and talk with a group that was on the lawn to tell them that Bailey and Jason had never voted for a traitor. Little does Mark know that Bailey actually did when she voted for Jane. Bailey just hasn't voted for a banished traitor. Mark made a mistake in trying to get Kat to bring up Jason at the round table. Not only did it make Kat suspicious of Mark that he was trying to get her to do that instead of him bringing it up, it also had everyone talking about it in the cars on the way to the mission. To add to that, the team had chosen Noel and Utah for the mission, but Mark stepped forward before Utah could. Throwing Mark's usual big smile at the end of Banishment, and you've got the faithfuls thinking he's either a traitor or a bad faithful. Despite a slow start to the mission with Noel and Mark struggling to cut the ropes of the other players, they managed to retrieve all the puzzle pieces and solve it in time. Kat, Donna, Jane and Stephen were still tied up and the puzzle was completed. They had to decide if there should be a banishment or a murder. If they chose to banish but don't end up banishing a traitor, then they lose $2,000 from the prize pot, which is what they had won during the mission. If they banish a traitor, then another $2,000 would be added. If they choose murder, the four would win the shield. They chose banishment. Kat, Donna and Jane were quick with their decision, but the slight hesitation in Stephen plus his general play has made him seem suspicious. Bailey and Utah in separate conversations have voiced their suspicions on Mike. Bailey using the fact that it took Mike a whole day to present to the others about Whitney, while Utah thinks the previous banishment was a traitor versus traitor battle. Bailey even brought up the fact that during the round table in episode 3, there were only 3 people that voted for Brittany during the first vote: Jackie, Whitney and Mike. Bailey has been quietly taking notes, though no one bring up her poor voting record.
And Bailey, you've also never voted for a traitor.
Damn, somebody did. This was an interesting roundtable because it seemed like the shackles were taken off with no murder to worry about. A lot of people were talking, though Paul still came too early for my liking. It's a constant annoyance for me with the editing. Mark, Bailey, Mike and Stephen were the main names mentioned and voted for. Though Jason's name was mentioned in regards to what was spoken about by Mark, that didn't really get pursued by anyone in discussions. Stephen was banished and there were many that were pissed off with Mark, especially as he was smiling after Stephen's exit. Mark acknowledged the mistakes he made during the day and wants to be better. This helped convince Utah of Mark's faithfulness, prompting Utah to take Bailey to one side to let her know he also thinks Mike is a traitor and that they should try and get him banished before one of them is murdered. Will the other faithfuls come to the same conclusion and banish Mike at the next round table? We shall see in the next episode.